Okay, well, I'll get started anyway. At least we'll have the recording for the asynchronous learners, which is half the class, more than half the class. Okay, so let's go over the last quiz, quiz 2. Let me see. Okay, so this one. These generally contain either a subject or a verb, but not both, and cannot stand on their own as a complete sentence. Most of you got it right, but some said dependent clause. So a dependent clause is still a clause, meaning it has both a subject and a verb. So the dependent clause, sure, it cannot stand on its own, but because I'm saying it can contain either a verb or subject, but not both, that means it has to be a phrase. Next one, get everybody on board here. For a plural noun that does end in S, you should have what to make it possessive. So like, cars, we just put the apostrophe at the end, right? Okay, everybody did well on that. So I guess I'll do anything 80, around 80%. In the sentence, the boy who broke the window is at the door. The who broke the window part is what? Well, we know because there's no commas there that it has to be a restrictive clause. If it was a non-restrictive clause, there'd be commas separating. Everybody did good on that. Ooh. To form a possessive to indicate the hat of Chris, you should add. So this is that case where it can be either, it's a matter of style, right? It can either be apostrophe S or just apostrophe. Now, I think most of you from your comments in the discussion have decided that you're going to do the apostrophe S, and that's fine. But the actual answer here is it can be either. Okay, let's see, 83. If a company or government agency sends out an RFP, they are looking for an unsolicited proposal. Well, if it's a request for proposal that they're sending out, they're looking for solicited proposals. Unsolicited is when no one sends out any requests and people just, like a cold call, send in a proposal hoping, oh, maybe they'll hire me. Okay, 100, 183.
Because they were asking for it, it's solicited, right?
Yes, they're soliciting for proposals. They're requesting them. So unsolicited means nobody asked you for it. Okay. When you have primary research in your report, you're using research that you found in a journal or article. No. Primary research means research that you yourself did. So that would be like a survey or a focus group, something like that. Okay, here's another 83%. When a manager writes a persuasive memo to employees using the indirect pattern, his or her goals are to present a strong but honest argument and to avoid manipulation or trickery. Yeah, so even though we're going to use the indirect pattern, that doesn't mean we're trying to fool anybody or not being honest with you. It just means how we stage the timing of the information. Okay, but in general, everybody did really well. What was the top total here? I mean, this, wow, that's great. So good job, everybody. Okay, let's see, where are we this week? Module 12, right? Yes, this week is resumes and exam number 2. All right, so this week's module, we're going to learn how to create a resume, how to create a cover letter, and then for the grammar part, we're going to break what I'm calling fake grammar rules. Rules that maybe you were taught in elementary school that really aren't rules at all. And kind of just mess up your writing when you try to obey them. What we're going to do, the usual, we're going to go through all the module pages, going to go over the reading. So I bet that almost all of you already have a resume that you've done. So if you don't, now's the time, but it's never. So this assignment this week, I hope isn't going to be too much because we have the exam. And I hope it's just that you're going to revise your resume, maybe learning some of the things that we're going to go over. Same with cover letter. And there's a participate in a discussion. Okay. All right, so like I said, most of you already have a resume that you created or whatever. But what we're going to talk about today is actually customizing it and why you need to do that. So it used to be back in the old days, before we had all these automated applicant tracking systems that would automatically filter out resumes before they even get to the hiring manager. Before we had that, you just wrote your one resume and you handed it out to everybody. And that's just how it went. But nowadays, because of these ATS systems, you need to tweak your resume for every place that you're going to apply it to so that it can get through those systems. Whatever that position is asking for, you'll see how we put keywords and whatnot into your resume for that particular position so it'll get through this applicant tracking system. Another thing we're going to look at is there are basically two different styles of resume. There's the chronological resume, which I think most people are familiar with, which just lists your work experience from most recent to oldest. So that, is the option you would pick if you've got some work history to speak of, 2 or 3 jobs at least, whatever it may be, or even, volunteer work. And it's not that great if you change jobs a lot or if you have a big gap in the time where you weren't working. So for those cases, we also have a different style, the functional resume, which instead of going through your work history in chronological order, it just focuses on functional items of your skill set. And you just make special categories for different things. And this is better for, like we mentioned, if you're changing jobs frequently, or have a gap in your employment record, or you're like, I don't want to do what I used to do. I'm going to try to do something completely radically different. So you, in effect, don't really have any applicable job experience because you're going on a new path. But the most often case where people use this are recent graduates that don't really have any job experience they could list chronologically. Okay, so this has been a question for some time. How long should a resume be? And the answer is, it depends. So again, back in the day when we did printed paper resumes, you had physical pages, and the prevailing thought was 1 page. If it was more than 1 page, they're not even going to look at it, not counting cover page. But that's not really true anymore because now everything's digital for one thing, and so there isn't really hard page delineations. And depending on your experience, I mean, if you've got like 40 years of experience, that is not going to fit on 1 page. In fact, I'm one to like 3 pages and I had to get rid of stuff. So yeah, it depends. But I think for most of you, probably a 1 page is a goal. So yes, organizing your resume and your information into effective categories. So you want to start with a simple header. Could be the letterhead. You always want to have your name formatted so it stands out on the page. If you know how to use headers and footers in Word, if you've taken the Word course or the business communication course, it's a good idea to use a header and put your name and contact information in that header, because sometimes the pages, if they print it out, can get separated, and you want to make sure hiring manager knows all your pages go together. Put your email address and social media handle. we're going to talk more about this, but we did mention this last time in job search that you want to try to keep two distinct personas, right? Your friends and family persona and your business persona as far as your social media accounts are concerned. So, and you don't really want to mix those. So, if you have more than one email address, try to make one just for work stuff. If not, it's okay. But your social media, that one definitely, you really don't want to give out your normal friends and family, TikTok or whatever thing you're using. And this is where LinkedIn can come in. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. LinkedIn, if you don't know, it's a website that's been out there for a long, long time. And a lot of hiring managers use that either primarily or secondarily to check up on an applicant. So that's like business only. Your contact list on there, business only. Any information that you post is business only. Yeah, you can probably leave out your street address if you don't want your address to get out there and start getting spam and stuff. But you definitely need to give them a way to contact you. So a telephone number, and then make sure it's a number where you can get texts as well as voicemail messages. Okay, so as far as the structure of your resume, you want to include the well-written objective, and this is where you want to customize it for the job opening. So if the job opening is like, we're looking for someone to handle our social media accounts, then you want to make sure that's in the objective of this resume that you're sending to that job, whatever it says. Again, that'll help it get through that tracking system. And then remember the U view? We did that mostly last semester, but you want to make sure that everything that you write in your resume is focusing on what they need, not what you need. Like, I'm looking for a job where I can make a lot of money and be powerful. No. This is all about what you can do for them, right? So the U view, try to target it towards what you can do for them. So you can use either a job title or an objective. But if you do use the job title, you want to make sure you're saying target job title or something to that effect in that section of your resume. Okay. So even if you're doing the functional style, you still want to have a summary of your qualifications. So this doesn't necessarily have to be your work experience in chronological order, but you want to highlight the specific work experience that is applicable for the job in question that this particular resume is going to. So like they say here, you want to kind of give a snapshot of your most notable work experience, achievements, and skills as pertains to this particular job. Again, it gets through that tracking system. This might be the very first thing a hiring manager would look at. Do they have the skills? So it could be, 3 to 8 bullet statements, just demonstrating your experience, your education, any certificates from Cabrillo, any associate's degrees from Cabrillo, any other things like that. So you want to definitely have an education section. You need the name, location of the school, and their website. I always put their website of the school there. The dates that you attended, what your major field, so you were in any degrees or certificates that you earned. So people often ask me, what about, do I put my high school experience on there? Not really. All of you now have attended Cabrillo, so once you hit that milestone in your life, no one really cares about your high school. You might want to mention it if it is applicable in the terms of, well, I was the chairperson of the cheerleader committee or something like that. Then, yeah, you want to mention that. Any kind of leadership role that you might have served while you were in high school. Now, okay, so that's your education part. Usually that comes first, and then the next part will be your work experience or employment history section, depending on how you're doing it, either chronological or functional. And for those, you want for each of the sections that you have for each piece of work experience, the employer's name, city, and state. I also put a website if they have one. The dates that you were employed there, month and the year. Probably the job title that you ended up with as you went, through the corporate structure there. And then just very briefly, what were your significant duties, activities, accomplishments, and if you were promoted? So those things you want to have, like each one of those be a bullet item. And what I'm going to recommend that you do is you have your sort of one mother of all resumes resume, where you put in everything you can think of, right? And then when you're applying for a specific job, you make a copy, you save as that, and you go in and you edit it as per what we're telling you here, right? So customize your information so it relates to the targeted job. So you can leave, things on your work history that aren't applicable to the job, that's fine, but you might want to reorder them so that, the ones that are most applicable to this particular job come first. But you can also edit out things you don't think, this particular job would care about, or reword them maybe. So those bullet points don't need to be complete sentences. Be specific, quantify your achievements, like I was in charge of the social media account and we increased our engagement by 42% over the 6 months, numbers, data. Anything that you can pick, highlight, that illustrates your initiative, dependability, responsibility, resourcefulness, leadership. And if you can, start each of your bullet points with an action word, like increased sales. List your special skills. Again, you want to target it to the position that you're applying this particular resume to. So use nouns that relate to that targeted position. You want to highlight whatever familiarity you have with all the things that we do here, all the things that we do in CABT. Any particular kinds of office tools and equipment, software products that you know. Here's some example expressions you can use: proficient in, competent, experienced in, ability to. Any way that you can showcase, what we might call exceptional aptitudes, such as working under stress, learning things quickly, especially computer programs, interacting with customers. If you have any kinds of awards or honors, highlight them by listing them under a separate heading. That's typical, awards, honors heading. If you have fewer than 3, you might just want to not have a special section for them, but just fold them into your education work experience if you can. And things that you may not remember or think about that could be in this category are scholarships. Like even if you filled out your FAFSA and you got a Pell Grant or something, that shows someone else picked you because they thought you had merit. Fellowships, Dean's List, honors, all those kinds of things, and especially for this group, certificates. If you did any kind of campus volunteering or professional activities, include those for sure. A lot of people put their personal data in. No one cares about that. In fact, some of this is not even legal to have a hiring manager ask you. Most of it, it's not legal for them to ask you, and no one cares. You definitely want to keep your political and religious items out of this conversation. That's for a different conversation. And you might think if you have any hobbies or interests that are somehow related to this particular job, or that might just grab their attention to serve as a conversation starter. And you want to make sure that you include if you're willing to travel or relocate. So references. You don't supply references on the initial resume submission. You don't even need to say references available on request. That's all assumed at this point. Your references are kind of like your personal treasure. You don't want to give the treasure away. So you want to wait until they ask for them, because they might, call up those references and talk to them, and you don't want to waste your precious references time with stuff that's not going to come to fruition. So wait until they come back to you and ask you more information, or do you want to come in for an interview? And when they ask you for your references, that's when you have a sheet that you hopefully already have prepared that you can send them. And then, references, there's business references and then personal or character references. The personal character references alone, I would say for 90% of applicants, doesn't matter and they don't even want to see that. There are a few jobs where some of these things can matter. Teaching is an example. So use your own judgment, whether you include those or not. One thing you can do is you can fold any personal or character references into a regular reference. It's like, yeah, they worked for me, or I know that they worked for this person, and they always showed up on time. Something like that, right? Okay, let's talk about LinkedIn for a second. I have mixed feelings about LinkedIn, but hey, it's free and people look at it, so why not? Also, as we mentioned, it's a way for you to sort of bifurcate your persona, right? So you have a place online, which is your business only persona. That's going to be your LinkedIn thing. And you very carefully edit that and maintain it, curate it just so it's about business stuff. And your contacts are all business contacts. There's tons of stuff online. In fact, even the Career Center has a workshop for creating your LinkedIn profile. So if you don't already have one of these and you don't even know where to begin, contact them. They'll help you out. It's not that hard to do anyway. So you need a professional headline, some kind of a tagline or branding slogan, a short phrase that sums up your professional person. You definitely need a photo profile. Any recommendations, they have a special system on there for recommendations for both of you to give people and for people to give you. So these are almost more important to acquire than just raw number of connections. So you never want to say anything on your resume that's not true. It can be very, very tempting. Don't do it. Keep it completely above board and honest. Now, that said, you've been trained in persuasive messaging, so you can use your persuasive techniques to try to make it more persuasive, but you can't say anything that's not true. All your business writing skills come into play here. Condense. Graphic highlighting, the typical Word template kind of thing where you have highlighted headings, stuff like that can definitely help. Again, back to our core techniques here, eliminate wordiness. And again, I'm just going to reiterate this, even if it's sort of half true or whatever, just get rid of this. That can really come back to haunt. As always, either have someone else ideally proofread or proofread your resume, put it aside for a day, come back a day later, take a look at it, look for spelling, grammar, mechanics, content format. If it's in Word, a lot of this will be checked for you. Yeah, have somebody else do it. One typo can sink you. I mean, what is that saying? It's like you don't even take enough time and concern in your own resume to fix a typo or misspelling. What are you saying? What are you broadcasting out to the employer? It's like, I don't care. So yeah, like I said, you're going to have to customize this. You should ideally customize this for each job that you apply to. So at least what I think is the best approach is to have that like mother of all resumes thing. And then, every time you're going to have to revise and customize that. So be prepared to rewrite it and rewrite and rewrite. Okay, I'm not going to go over this too much. So this is where you're submitting your resume online to some large, resume service. Recall back last week when we were talking about job search that there were those two job markets, right? The public one and the hidden one. So the public one, you're fighting many, many people to try to get noticed and try to get selected. Whereas in the private one, not so much. So a lot of these things that we're talking about here about putting in all these keywords, maximizing your rank, whatever, those don't even really apply to the hidden job market. So again, focus on that one if possible, right? Using your personal network, whatever you got. It's only when you're just blasting your resume out with hundreds of other people to a public job board where you need to think about these things of adding the keywords, trying to do all these things to maximize your rank. So there's a thing called a career e-portfolio. So depending on the kind of job you're looking for, you can have a portfolio of work that you've done that's applicable to what they're looking for. You can take some of the work you've done for this class, for example, say, look, I know how to do all these kinds of reports. Here's examples. Right? Reference letters, recommendations, thank you letters, anything like that. So if it's more of creative, in the creative realm, artistic, film projects, videos, blueprints, anything that's not under NDA from a different company, schematics, code, multimedia files. You can give links so they can go find those things. So I don't think Cabrillo does this, but like at the University of California, when you're an alumni, you get a website just for you. And so that's where you could put all this e-portfolio stuff. And as you know, we have digital media courses here, and you can go and, if you want to do a video to apply for a job, you can use all the things here. Depending on that platform that you're given, you can also create your own, right? You can use some of these tools to host your e-portfolio. Or you can do the simple route and just put it on Google Docs or Dropbox, something like that, and just put links up to that. Yeah, so we just mentioned briefly the video resume. So depending on the job, again, that you're applying for, a video resume could be a good choice or even a requested choice. And that allows you to demonstrate your public speaking, interpersonal technical skills in a more impressive way. And like I said, for some jobs where that might be your job, you're going to be on a support Zoom or something like that, then a video resume would be a good choice. And some of you have had experience doing this from last semester when we did our final project. So how many resumes in what format? So obviously today, most things are either submitted through some kind of online portal electronically or sent in email electronically, but you still want to keep some print-based resumes with you so you could hand them out. Sometimes that's very helpful during a job interview, or if you're in a networking situation. Career fairs definitely would be where you want to hand out a paper copy. Or some, this day, I don't know if there's any of these left, but jobs that don't require electronic submission. Okay, yeah, I was going to mention this. So you probably did your resume in, say, Word, which is great. And you can even keep it and send it out as a Word document if you want to. But you should also use the Save As there to convert it to a couple of other formats. Plain text format is good for some applicants, and they'll ask for that because that's going to go through their tracking system better than something that's formatted. Also, PDF is good. Remember I talked about, well, that was last semester, that I talked about in Word specifically. It's actually keeping history of all your edits, even if you don't say track changes. It's hidden, it's in the file though, and someone can, they have the skills, look through that file and find your edits and things you might not want out there. So there are ways in Word, and you'll learn this when you take the Word course. There's a menu item to strip that stuff out. But if you export it to PDF, that stuff's taken out. Also, maybe not such a great idea to give out a format that can be easily edited, because then someone could change something without your knowledge. So PDF is sort of like a snapshot in time and not easily edited. Here's some guidelines for making the plain text document. I don't know. I mean, I think just save as text in Word would be enough. Of course, you know that when you do that, if you had any fancy stuff, it's going to strip that out, right? Any kind of formatting, any charts or tables. So Word will do this for you automatically. Where you had bullets, it'll change them to asterisks. All this stuff's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. So most of the time they'll tell you what format they want you to submit it in. As we mentioned, Word, plain text, or PDF. So if they say what kind they want, you definitely want to give it to them and what they're asking for. That's one less hurdle, right? Okay, so that was your resume. Now we're going to talk about the cover letter. Do they still matter? Yes, they still matter. Cover letter or letter of application is used to introduce your resume. It's every single cover letter has always been the case. It needs to be customized each particular person that you're sending it to. So regardless of its length, I mean, it really only needs to be one page. It's like just a cover sheet, but it should have these parts: an opening that captures their attention and introduces the message, identifies what the position you're applying for, a body that promotes you and focuses on their needs, the you view, and a closing that requests an interview or motivates some kind of call to action. So if you know the name of the hiring manager, which you can often find on a company website or LinkedIn, it's great if you can use that instead of, dear hiring manager, or to whom it may concern. Yeah, like it says, try to find the appropriate person on LinkedIn or by going to their website. You can even call up the HR department and say, who's the name of the person in charge of hiring? And they may have more than one, like who's in charge of hiring for these technical positions. So if you can't find anything, you've done through all that and you come up empty, instead of having the normal salutation, you might just start off with application for whatever the job is. So if it's not in the hidden job market, if it's in the public job market and it's been announced, you might consider some of these techniques. Refer to the name of an employee in the company if you know someone through your networking. Refer to the source of information precisely. Refer to the job title. Because a lot of the hiring managers are going to get all these resumes for all kinds of jobs. So you can make sure it's clear on the cover sheet in which job you're applying to. So if you're doing this cold or you're not sure whether the position really even exists, you might want to make a more persuasive opening by doing a demonstration of interest or knowledge of their business, or show how your particular special talents and background will benefit them. Use the body of your letter to plug your qualifications, sort of obvious, right? And then, sort of at the end, refer the reader to your resume. And then in that closing where you're doing the call to action, confidently ask for an interview. I guess don't just flat out ask for the job. That's a bit presumptuous, right? Suggest your reader benefits or review your strongest points. Sound sincere, appreciative. Make sure it's easy for the reader to respond. Got to give them your telephone number and email address. And if you are in a situation where you can't take calls all day, it's times that there you are available. And avoid expressions as I hope, weaken your closing. Yeah, I don't think that's the end of the world, but you probably avoid it. So yeah, most of the time they'll give you instructions on how they actually want you to submit your resume. So these are typical ways, like send an email, want your cover letter, resume attached. So you can also do the cover letter as an email itself and then attach your resume. You can also take that plain text version that we talked about and put those in email. That's not the preferable way. Or as a last resort, you can just snail mail it. Reduce I. We already did this last semester, the you view. Make activities and outcomes the subject of sentences. Focus on the you view. Move phrases from within the sentence to the beginning. Strive for comfortable style. Cover letters must look professional, suggest quality, obviously. Use traditional letter style, such as a block format, right? If you're going to give them a paper copy, put them on nice paper, same as resume, proofread it. Make sure you have done a proofreading and give it to a friend. Okay, so I think most of that was pretty obvious, straightforward. Okay, for your assignment this week, you're going to create or update your resume. As I mentioned at the beginning, for those who missed it, I'm kind of assuming that most of you already have a resume of one type or another. So this shouldn't be a huge exercise. It should be just, I'm going to update my resume, given all the things that we just went over in the reading. So as you recall from the reading review, there are basically two formats, the chronological and the functional. And there's a couple examples here you can look at for inspiration. So it tells you, what it is and how to do it, and it gives you a few examples. And this would be, as again, a better choice if you've got 3 or more prior job history things that you can put in there. So that's chronological. Here's an example of functional. This would be better if you just don't really have any work experience, or you're applying for a job that's totally different than anything you've ever done before. And there's examples here. If you want to take a look at some examples, how that works. Okay, and as we also mentioned, you need to customize, these days you need to customize the resume as well as the cover sheet for every job that you're applying to, so you can get through the tracking systems. And here's an article on how to customize, some ideas to change. So again, if you have that, mother of all resumes, then you can just sort of edit stuff out of it. Save as, take some stuff out that doesn't apply to this particular job. And then maybe put in a few changes that targets to that specific job. Okay. So here I want to talk about what I call your value proposition. So generally speaking, a hiring manager has two things in mind. One is, what value would you bring to our organization? And the second thing is, what risk do you bring hiring you? So obviously you want to do everything you can to increase your value proposition to that company, and you want to do everything you can to reduce the risk of hiring you. This is where that hidden job market comes in. The risk factor goes way down if they know someone who personally knows you and has worked with you before and can sort of vouch for you, right? That reduces their risk. But in terms of how do you increase your value to them, you do that with a value proposition. A value proposition is a clear, concise statement that explains how you can solve their problem, how you can deliver them specific benefits. And it's going to distinguish you from all the competitors, that is, other people that are applying for this job. Sort of acts as a promise that I'm going to generate this value to you. And it highlights why they should choose you over the other folks, because you're going to increase their value. So when you're thinking about how to distinguish yourself from the other applicants, keep these things in mind. Your specific experience, obviously, well, out of all the experience you have listed, the ones that are specific to them in terms of solving their problem, whatever that means. You want to highlight those, bring it to the front. Your targeting niche. Okay, so again, it's like, okay, this particular job, they work in this particular problem domain. I have experience in that targeted domain. Any up-to-date training, so you're taking classes at Cabrillo is a good one. Any kind of online things that you may have done. The world keeps moving, and even after you leave Cabrillo, you're not done. Learning is a lifelong experience. Your proven track record. So again, if you have things like increased social media engagement by so many percent, or it's like, I've done these things, so I'm reducing risk of hiring me, and I'm increasing my value proposition to you. Your associations. If you're members of any, committees or technical societies, anything like that that has anything to do with this job, mention them. And obviously any certificates, degrees, or other testimonials. A testimonial is a formal statement or letter endorsing or affirming a person's character or qualifications. Okay. So now we have this video, and I want to watch this video. First of all, let me turn on the sound. There's a bunch of videos out there about how to write a resume, but the reason I like this one is has a foundation in data. You'll see this guy's talking about this study that was done where this person analyzed 125,000 different resumes looking for certain things, and it's kind of shocking how few of them had the things that employers are looking for. So let's just watch this video. I think we can fit it in time. It's 8 minutes. Well, we'll go a little bit past the halfway point, but I think that's okay.
One of the biggest issues with resume tips from the internet is that most of it is subjective. What works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So when Austin Belsack released his findings from analyzing 125,484 resumes, I got excited because data, to a large extent, takes the guesswork out of the equation. In my opinion, his findings are pure gold because it basically confirmed my suspicions that in order to write an incredible resume, there are some proven foundational principles we should follow, whether we're making a resume for our first job or improving upon a good resume we've had for years. As usual, I care about your time, so I'm going to share the 5 key learnings up front, then talk about the implications of the study, and end with practical resume writing tips you can use immediately to stand out. So let's get started. Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jeff, and we're all about practical career interview and productivity tips. So if you're a working professional, consider subscribing for more actionable content. Full disclosure, Austin did not ask me to make this video. He doesn't even know who I am. The data geek in me just got so excited about all the numbers that I just had to share it in a video format. Without further ado, the 5 key learnings from Austin's study. Number 1, resumes with a LinkedIn profile see higher interview rates, but only 48% of resumes included a LinkedIn profile. Number 2, candidates only included 51% of important keywords and skills, heavily under-indexing on soft skills. Number 3, measurable metrics improve resume outcomes, but only 26% of resumes included 5 or more metrics. Number 4, research shows that the ideal resume length is 475 to 600 words. 77% of resumes fell outside of that range. And number 5, fluffy content takes away from a resume's value, but 51% of resumes included buzzwords, cliches, or incorrect pronouns. I'm gonna link the original article and all other resources I mentioned down in the description below, so feel free to check that out if you want more perspective on how to write great resumes. Now you know the key takeaways. What does this actually mean for you? Let's start with number 1, including a LinkedIn profile on your resume. And here's a graph that completely blew me away. At first glance, the implication seems to be pretty simple. Having a LinkedIn profile linked on your resume gives you a much higher chance of landing a job interview. But if you take a closer look, having a bare bones or basic LinkedIn profile actually decreases your chances of getting a callback, meaning you're better off hiding your LinkedIn profile if you're not putting any effort into it. In my opinion, the differences between a comprehensive profile and a basic one boil down to number 1, having a professional headshot and LinkedIn banner. Number 2, how informative your work detail section is. And number 3, how much effort you put into building meaningful connections. I actually have a LinkedIn tips and tricks playlist that walks you through all those points. And I also share how to get a custom LinkedIn URL to put on your resume so that it looks clean. Make sure to check that out after this video. And that's not all. You might also notice that as job level increased, the gap in callback rates decreased between job applicants. This suggests that having a strong LinkedIn profile is more important for entry-level job seekers compared to their higher-level peers. If you're finding this video helpful so far, please drop a like, and if not, keep watching because it only gets better. Number 2, including the right keywords and skills when writing a resume or CV. While I'm not a big fan of just submitting applications online, it is a fact of life that applicant tracking systems scan for certain keywords and experiences to filter out what they define as low potential candidates. According to the research, the average job description includes 43 keywords, but most candidates only matched 51% on their resume, meaning they only included 20 or so relevant keywords. In order to overcome this, you want to use free online word cloud tools. I'll link a few down below. Copy and paste the job description in there and identify the keywords that pop up most frequently and make sure to include those in a natural way when writing your resume. Furthermore, we see that candidates' resumes included 60% of the necessary hard skills and only 28% of the necessary soft skills when compared to their target role's job description. This makes sense because there's usually a skills/interest section at the bottom of your resume where you highlight your capabilities in Excel, Python, SQL, the hard skills, right? To make sure you're also including relevant soft skills, you can take a look at Udemy's Workplace Trends Report or CNBC's summary and see which of the top 10 in-demand soft skills are applicable to you and include those as well. Number 3, include measurable results in your bullet points. The study shows that 26% of resumes included 5 or more instances of measurable metrics, while 36%, more than a third, didn't include a single quantifiable result. Why do companies prefer resumes with metrics? Because metrics make value easier to understand and quantify. I cannot stress this enough. If 10 candidates all say they're responsible for planning and executing social media campaigns, it's very hard to tell who did it well and who didn't. The one person that says, hey, my campaigns drove 30% year-on-year increase in sales revenue is gonna stand out. There's a popular XYZ resume bullet point formula that goes like this: accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. For example, if you're a content marketing manager, your bullet point might look like this: drove 2,500 organic signups to our monthly newsletter by A/B testing content layout and collaborating with co-marketing partners, representing a 43% quarter-on-quarter increase. Pro tip: a lot of you might be working on projects that might not have a direct impact on growth or revenue. Let's say you're working on your company's internal tools. In that case, you can say your improvements led to a 33% increase in productivity for the sales team, which translates to X amount of incremental revenue. Number 4, keep your resume length between 475 and 600 words. This is because the research has shown that resumes in that sweet spot saw double the interviews of those that were outside of those ranges. B, 77% of the resumes from Austin's study had either fewer than 475 words or more than 600, meaning from a purely statistical standpoint, you are automatically in a stronger position versus other candidates if you have a 500-word resume. Of course, I do want to point out there are definitely exceptions when it comes to career level and academic roles. If you're a professor, federal employee, or C-level executive, you might have a 2 to 3 page resume or CV with well over 1,500 words, and that's perfectly fine. For those of you who do not fall in that category though, this finding means that number 1, do not keyword stuff your resume. It's not about the number of keywords you have in your resume, right? It's about having the ones that match the job. And of course, number 2, something a lot of us have been doing since middle school, using the word count tool in Word or Google Docs to make sure we're staying within that sweet spot. And number 5, the bane of all recruiters, hiring managers, and just resume readers in general: buzzwords and cliches. Do not use them. We're all super motivated by our passions. We're all detail-oriented team players. We all have creative mindsets. And who doesn't like to talk about the synergies between different products? If you found that hard to listen to, imagine the recruiter going over 30 resumes a day. And according to the study, 51% of resumes in the data set included some sort of buzzword or cliche. Buzzwords, fluff, cliches are unnecessary and take away from your message. Your writing should always be selling your experience, not summarizing it. As a very practical solution, go ahead and Google resume cliches and buzzwords and remove all the ones you find in your resume to give it an instant upgrade. Were some of the findings from Austin's study pretty basic? Yeah, you should always include measurable results in your bullet points, optimize and add your LinkedIn profile, and avoid using buzzwords to write a good resume. But hopefully, the numbers behind the research have convinced you that these non-negotiable aspects lay very solid groundwork for you to make additional tweaks and adjustments. I've actually made quite a few of these mistakes myself back in the day, so make sure to check out my video on the top 5 resume mistakes I made when applying to management consulting and Google. See you on the next video, and in the meantime, have a great one.
Okay, I hope that was useful. Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, we're at 10:35, so let's go ahead and do the 10-minute break, and we'll be back, and I want to talk about some of the statistics of the video that we just went through. Okay, we're back. So yeah, if you came in late, first of all, the recording will be on Canvas by this evening. You can review, but we just watched this video where this person summarized a study done where someone looked at over 100, what was it, 125,484 resumes and did some statistical analysis on it. And the big takeaway for me, at least on this, was, look, this is a no-brainer. They're showing, all these resumes were missing these things. All you got to do is put them on there. So number one, 48% of resumes included a LinkedIn profile. Only 48%. So if you make a LinkedIn profile, it doesn't take that long. And like I mentioned, there's all kinds of resources online and at the Career Center here for how to create a LinkedIn profile. Already, you're ahead of half of the other people. Number two, only 51% included important keyword skills and under-indexed their soft skills. So again, look for the particular job, you're applying for, find keywords, put those in, put in your soft skills. You're already pretty much ahead of half the people that are applying for this job. Number three, measurable metrics. Only 26% of resumes had measurable, included 5 or more metrics. So if you can include more than 5 metrics with actual measurable outcomes, you're ahead of almost 3/4. Number 4, this one's super easy. They did a study. I'm not sure how the study was done. We can look at it if you want, but they figured out that the sweet spot for the number of words in the resume was between 475 and 600. But through almost over 3/4 of the resumes that were studied fell outside that window. So just get inside that window, and you're ahead of 3/4 of the other people. And then the last one, the fluffy content, the buzzwords, cliches. Again, if you scrub that and get rid of those, you're ahead of almost half the other people. So to me, that's just like low-hanging, easy fruit. So I've included links to the original study if you're interested, and then other reports that he talked about, this Udemy report and the CNBC summary of soft skills. And then he talked about word cloud tools. So I don't know if you know what word cloud is, but it's sort of a graphic that if you give it a bunch of text, the tool will create this graphic for you with all the keywords out of that text in there, but they're sized by the number of occurrences in the text, right? So if you take the job description and you shove it into this tag crowd tool, for example, which is a free tool online, it will, give you that graphic. You can do a little experiment here. Let's just take some text. Let's take that text. And let's just take this text right here. And we'll go to the tool. And put in some text. So this is a word cloud. So clearly out of all this text resume, the word resume came up more than the others. But then tips and work, and then as you see, it gets smaller and smaller. So by putting in the job description into this tool and say visualize, you can see what they're looking for and how it's weighted. So that's the word cloud. Okay, so I know this is very long. This is the whole transcription of that video. This is a very long page here, but it turns out this is actually an assignment. And the assignment here is to create a well-written personal resume, either in chronological or functional order. And like I said, I'm sure most of you already have a resume, so probably this just means editing it, taking in mind the things that we talked about here. So do it in Word and upload it into Canvas here. And what I'll do is I'll take a look at it and I'll give you my edits. Okay. So that's your first assignment. So that was about the resume. Now we're talking about the cover letter. Both are critical. You need to have both. There's a good section in our textbook that talks about it. We went over that in the reading review. And I have a couple of links to articles here, how to write a customized cover letter. So actually, you need to customize both your cover letter and your resume these days to get through the tracking systems, but it's always been the case that you had to customize your cover letter. And this is going to give you some ideas on how to do that. A couple of different things to look at there. So that's one. And then here's another one about customizing it for a particular job. There's some good tips here. Look at that on your own. So on the second assignment, probably figured out it's going to be your cover letter that I want. And you probably already have a cover letter that you could just edit. So what I want you to do here is going to create a well-written personal cover letter, either solicited or unsolicited. That's your choice. So you make that choice, decide whether this is, in response to either a real or imaginary job offer, or you're going to do it as an unsolicited cover letter that you're just sending out as a blast, hoping that you get a job someplace. So you're going to, like I said, pick either a real job offer that you have seen or make up an imaginary one that you're going to be customizing this particular cover letter for. You're going to use Word. You're going to use the business letter template. By this point, I hope you've used Word before, and you'll submit the Word document by dragging it onto the Rocket thing. But this is what I'm looking for. So either if it's solicited or unsolicited, these are the structures I'm looking for. So for a solicited one, the structure is the opening with these things should be in it. Body with these things in it, which we've already gone over, and a closing with these things in it. Make sure you have the call to action. I want an interview. For unsolicited, it's very similar. There are a couple of minor differences. So again, do that, submit it in Word. So that's the two assignments. Okay, so for the grammar section for today, we're going to be talking about quote unquote fake grammar rules. What do I mean by fake grammar rules? Well, as you well know by now, one of the objectives of this class is to undo or reframe some things you may have already learned in your prior experience with academic writing, so English classes. So we're trying to kind of undo some of that behavior and reframe it in the terms of business writing. And as I hope you know by now, Business writing isn't the same as academic writing. And when I say academic writing, I think you know what I mean, essays, prose, poems, critiques, reviews, that kind of stuff. So in this assignment, we're going to examine what you might call fake grammar rules. And these fake grammar rules can make your writing just sound stilted, not really conversational, or worse, it can obscure the meaning for really no reason. And if you're rewriting your sentence to avoid these rules, which are fake to begin with, it just causes a lack of conciseness and clarity, which are the two main things we're looking for in business writing. Okay, so we're going to examine some of these rules, and we're going to give you the permission to break them. In other words, we're going to turn these into myths, so rules. And here's the ones I want to go over. Don't begin a sentence with because. Don't begin a sentence with and or but. Don't end a sentence with a preposition. Don't split infinitives. Never use I think, I feel, I hope. None is always singular. And don't use less when you mean fewer. So let's go through each of these in detail. Don't begin a sentence with because. I was taught this way back in the day in school. Forget it. You can do it. It's totally fine. Remember, we went through the different sentence types, and when we make a complex sentence, we use that subordinating conjunction to create that dependent clause. And one of the subordinating conjunction is the word because. So it's perfectly fine. We've learned how to do it. So here's an example. Because he embezzled millions of dollars, he spent the rest of his life in jail. This is a complex sentence, right? We have the dependent clause and the independent clause. Just remember, put that comma in. Now, if we were going to follow this myth rule, we'd have to rewrite this as something like, due to the fact that he embezzled millions of dollars. Now, is that better than the first sentence? I don't think so. I think it's worse. It's more wordy. It doesn't sound conversational. Why was this even considered a rule? I don't know. Maybe to avoid having to go down the rabbit hole of creating dependent clauses. So please go ahead, start sentences with because. It's all right. Here's another one that I was taught back in the day. Don't begin a sentence with and or but. And if you look into it, there's actually no grammar rule that forbids starting a sentence with and or but. You can see it everywhere. However, I wouldn't overuse this. Okay, use it sparingly because it kind of requires what I'm calling an advanced sense of rhythm in your sentence. It can be kind of jarring when you're reading the sentences. There's a lot of sentences begin with and or but one or two is fine. Here's the big one I was taught. Don't end a sentence with a preposition. We call a preposition as part of speech, which relates a noun to another word, usually in terms of its position, above, below, in, out. But there's others. So why was this ever even thought to be a rule? Well, it turns out it wasn't really. Some guy wrote a book way back in the day saying, well, I'm a Latin scholar and I think English should be more like Latin. And Latin, you can't even do this because they conjugate things such that they're combined. But so what? English isn't even Latin. It's more dramatic than Latin. And it can really make sentences weird, make them weirdly non-conversational. For example, if you told somebody, that is the restaurant at which I'd like to eat, rather than the more conversational, that is the restaurant I'd like to eat at, and say here, people are not going to want to eat with you at any restaurant, right? That's just weird. So yeah, at is a preposition, putting it at the end of the sentence, completely fine. Don't split infinitives. What does that even mean? Well, if you recall back a few modules, when we were talking about verbs, if you're talking about the verb sort of abstractly, you say to whatever, to go, to see, to be. That's the infinitive form of the verb, and it's like a gerund, and it lets us talk about the verb as if it were a noun. So splitting the infinitive means to stick something in between the to and the verb part. So to something be, you stick a word in there. And that was always considered a bad thing. Like on Star Trek, to boldly go. Putting that boldly in there, that's splitting the infinitives. And here's an example, to more than double our billable hours. Now, if you had to rewrite that one to avoid splitting the infinitive to double, how would you do it? If you think about it, it's really awkward, whatever you come up with. If you can even come up with something. And in some cases, what you come up with is like, that's not exactly what I meant to say. So it's fine, split the infinitive. Here's another one. Never use I think, I feel, I hope. Made your writing sound weak, wishy-washy to qualify everything. Now, I'm not saying you should use it with everything. But I mean, wouldn't it be dishonest for you to say something is true when you don't really know that it's actually true or it's not true in all cases? So if you're not sure of an assertion that you're making, by all means say, I believe, or something like that. So here's an example. We will double our revenues this quarter. Oh, really? That's a fact, huh? You can see into the future and you know that. So contrast that with, I believe we will double our revenues this quarter. Now, again, don't use it like in every single sentence, but anytime you're making an assertion that you are not absolutely sure it can be true, it's fine to put these words in. Here's another one. None is always singular. So remember when we talked about the subject-verb agreement? Probably don't, but the subject-verb agreement is the opposite day thing. It's where the verb in a sentence has to match the number and sometimes the person of the subject. For example, when I give you here the singular subject it and the plural subject they, use different versions of the same verb. You say it goes and they go, right? Remember the opposite day thing is you do what would be a plural for the singular case, right? So in the case of a subject that has the word none in it, this fake rule said that none always is singular because it's short for not one. So not one would be a singular thing. So, for example, if you had the sentence, we were going to go out tonight, but none of us have any money, you'd have to change that to, we were going out tonight, but none of us has any money, right? Because has is the singular form of the verb. Because what they're saying is none is always singular, but that's not really true. I mean, since way long time ago, none has also been short for not any, as well as not one. So you can totally, make the plural verb go with the subject if you're saying none, if you meant to say not any instead of not one. Okay, and the next one. So this is really a rule. I'm just saying we can relax it a bit. And I actually think it's important that you know about this rule and know when you can relax it. So it's the idea that less and fewer don't mean the same thing. This rule states that less and fewer have different meanings. They're exclusive from each other. You should only use one or the other depending on what you're talking about. So less means lower in amount, degree, or value, and fewer is lower in quantity. So less is something you should use only for things that you can't count out, you can't enumerate, like less water, please, versus fewer for things that are countable. We talked about countable before for another thing. So if you can count it, if you can enumerate thing, whatever it is you're talking about, then fewer is the preferred word. Like fewer people goes to the movies these days. I can count people, but I can't really count water, right? So like I'm saying, this is a rule that's generally true, and you certainly shouldn't use fewer for amounts. Like I want fewer milk in my tea. That doesn't make any sense at all, right? But what I'm arguing is that in conversational writing, the word less can actually mean both, right? And the very famous example here is a sign at the supermarket checkout that says 10 items or less, right? Well, that's not grammatically correct according to this rule, because items are things you can count, right? So it should be 10 items or fewer. But I'm asking you, what sounds more conversational, 10 items or less or 10 items or fewer? I think if you read a sign in the supermarket checkout that said 10 items or fewer, you'd be taken aback for a second, like that's a little weird. Well, that's correct. But what I'm saying is you can relax this rule and you can say 10 items or less. You can use less for countable things as well. But you need to be careful because in some cases it can actually change the meaning. And my example here is fewer bad people. Okay, so that's very clear. We're using fewer, it's countable, so it's not as many people. But that means something different than less bad people. Less bad people means they're not as bad, right? So I need to be careful. All right, so what I'm gonna do, actually what we're gonna do together in class is we're gonna take this paragraph and we're gonna fix it by breaking all those grammar myths that we just saw. So let me put this into student view. You can follow along if you like. So we're going to copy this paragraph. We're going to paste it into here. Is that big enough for everyone to see? Can I make it bigger?
A little bigger.
Yeah, I can make it a little bigger. Who's that? All right. So I intentionally put all these rules in here that we're going to undo. Okay, so let's just read it through once. Due to the fact that none of us has much money, we were not sure to what restaurant we wanted to go. However, fewer of us were interested in Taco Bell than Burger King, so we ate burgers. People in our group don't like Mexican food. Okay. So let's just start with the first sentence. What grammar myths are we using here? So the first one is don't begin a sentence with because. So due to the fact, that's wordy, right? Due to the fact of that. So we're going to break the myth, don't begin a sentence with because. So I'm just going to change that to because. Because none of us has one. That's definitely an improvement, right? Way less words. Sounds more conversation. Okay, because none of us has much money. Well, I'm also going to apply the none is always singular myth. And I'm going to say none of us have much money. All right, what's next? We were not sure to what restaurant we wanted to go. That seems a little awkward, doesn't it? So what can we do there? What myth can we break? How about the ending a sentence with a preposition? So let's put a preposition go to, and then we can simplify this. We were not sure what restaurant we wanted to go to. That's definitely more conversation. Okay, so this one, I'm going to say we're going to apply the myth of less when you mean fewer here, although this is fine, and you might even prefer this one, but we could say less of us. So that one I'll leave, like, if you want to change it, change it. If you think it's better being fewer, that's fine. And then on the last one, people in our group don't like Mexican. Oh, really? You know that for a fact, do you? Maybe you can't bag that assertion up. So maybe,
We use that, I think.
yes, so you would say, I think people in our group don't like Mexican food. So something like that. There's probably other things you could change, but that's the major points. So let's read this back now that we've edited it. Because none of us have much money, we were not sure what restaurant we wanted to go to. However, most of us were interested in Taco Bell and Burger King, so we ate burgers. I think people in our group don't like Mexican food. Sounds way more conversational to me. It's less words. I should have cut the word count before we started. Okay, I'm going to submit. Everybody got that? Who wants to do it now?
I'm working on it. Give me 1 second.
Okay, it's still there. Let me know when you got it.
Could we have also changed however to because?
Yep, you could do that.
Okay.
I'm not sure it changes it much, and either you starting with however or because both break the myth, so. Are we okay to continue? Crickets? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. You can always look back at the video if you need to see what it was.
I'm good.
Okay. Put this back down. Oop, too far. Okay, so we have a discussion. And I'm asking you these two questions. Based on your experience, what further advice can you give for creating an effective resume? So I know that you've all written resumes, so if you have any ideas of your own that we didn't cover, or if you want to just highlight some of the ideas, like, yeah, that one, that's a good one. And same thing with cover letter. Any advice that you can give from experience about cover letters? Anything that helped you land a job? So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, and then the big one here is the exam number 2. You know the drill by now. So it's going to cover modules 6 through 11. We did quiz 2 to prepare for this. As you know, for these, you only get one chance. So make sure that you've given yourself plenty of time and a quiet space reserved before you begin. Of course, if something happens, computer crashes, whatever, house schedule on fire, get a hold of me, we can restart it for you. So the usual thing, true or false question, you have to punctuate a bunch of sentences, correct a paragraph, a bunch of grammar questions about these things, colon, semicolon, commas. Oh, I didn't put in here. Oh yeah, I did. It's open book. Remember, you can use the reference module, look up things. It's a 3-hour exam. If you have accommodations, they've already been extended. It closes on 10 p.m. next week, this same day. Any questions on any of that?
Does it go one question at a time, Professor?
What do you mean? One question at a time?
It has happened before. I'm not sure if the quiz was the same, but it was like we were only able to answer one question at a time. We couldn't see the rest of the questions.
Oh,
I'm not sure if that happened to anybody else, but
it does randomize them.
I second what Yummy says.
Yeah.
It used to be where you could see like all 40 questions at the same time and you could just scroll up and down the page. But now you
yeah.
have to like click through each question to go to a different page.
Okay, well, let me,
And it's very close to the submit button. So it's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, every time I want to review all the questions, I have to go through each one, and it's
Yeah.
see if there's some setting I'm not setting here. Let students see their quiz responses. Yeah, that's after you answer, right? Show one question at a time. I don't have that clicked here. Maybe I had that accidentally clicked on another one. Let me go back. So did that happen on quiz 2 that you just took? Do you remember?
Yeah, I
Well,
think so.
I think so too. Yeah.
let me go back and see if those are on. I'll turn off, but I think this is what you're talking about, and it's off.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do let me know if you still experience that, because yeah, that's not cool.
Okay.
Not cool. Yeah, I think it's a good test taking technique in general to like cherry pick, right? Go through like, okay, I know that one, I know that one, I know that one. Got those out of the way. Go back. These are the ones I'm not sure about.
Yeah, that's what I do. And I just, yeah, want to make sure I
Yeah,
review it before I submit it again. But
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, and I think that's it, right? All right, so what were the takeaways? Went over creating resume, creating cover letters, we went over the fake grammar rules. And exam number 2. Any questions on any of that stuff? If you're not caught up, take the exam, absolutely take the exam, even if you feel you're not ready to take the exam, take it anyway. Some points are better than no points. It counts for 40% of your grade, so if you don't take the quizzes or the exam, it's mathematically impossible for you to pass the course. So take it. And then after you've done that, go back and look. Any assignments that you haven't turned in, try to get them in. Cherry pick the high value ones if you can't do them all. There's a couple of you that at this point, this again, mathematically impossible for you to pass the course. You just don't have enough assignments turned in. So if you find yourself in that situation, gotta get caught up. You know where I am to help you. I'm gonna be in the CTC here after this class, and I'm in Watsonville all afternoon till 8 p.m. tomorrow. You can either just call in the Zoom or come in. Brandon, I guess you came in last Thursday, but I didn't know you even came in. You didn't say anything to me, so next time, like, give me a shout out, because I never met you. I don't know what you look like. Anyway, unless there's any other questions, that's it for today.
Are you gonna be at the CAT right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go over there. Give me, 50 minutes to get over there, but I'll be over there, yeah.
Okay, I'm still in Watsonville. I'll head out that way. I have a couple of questions to ask you.
Oh, did you say Watsonville or Aptos? I'm in Aptos now, and I'm in Watsonville tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, but I'm heading out to Aptos.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'll see you there.
Be there till 2, yeah.
Okay, so then we're done, right?
Yeah, we are done.
Okay, I'll see you there. Bye-bye.
If there's any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, see you guys next time.